Hello, friends. So good to be with you today. I got one question for you here today. Who are you? I think that's one of the most important questions that you can answer if you know. You know that most people don't know who they are? They really don't. Um, and I want to say, and many times it's no fault of their own. Sometimes because when they start out very young in life, they adapt to other people's identity, other people's personality. They're trying to be like this person or trying to be like that person. And many times their own personal identity is lost. And it's such a shame because there's nothing more wonderful, if I can say, I'm grasping for words there. There's nothing more wonderful than the individuality, the uniqueness of who you are as a person. That should be celebrated. But many times we become so fearful and insecure and uncertain that we're almost afraid to tread those waters. When the greatest discovery you'll find in life is not necessarily about things or other people. The greatest discovery you'll find in life is when you find out about yourself and you become comfortable with that. You begin to realize, yeah, I know you've got warts and weird things going on with you, but all right, I know who I am. I can settle into that. And many people you can really tell those that don't know who they are is because there's never that sense of settling. There's always that feeling of uncertainty, hesitation. And so I think one of the most important questions that you can ask yourself is that very thing there is to say, who are you? And once you realize who you are, you will begin to settle. As a matter of fact, I'll even say this: if you don't find out who you are, you never come to that place of fullness. I believe that the gifts that are on the inside of you, the true power that is on the inside of you, is never released through another person's identity. It only comes when you do the work and find out and accept who you are. Now, that's not saying you're going to find anything that's perfect. Matter of fact, you may find some things that disappoint you. But the fact is, you don't have to stop there and just accept that, because we always have within us the capability to cultivate ourselves, to grow. Dear God, I mean, I'm not what I was 30 years ago. I'm hardly what I was last week. I hope that never changes. In other words, I hope that search for growth, for expansion, for flourishing, I hope that never leaves me. I hope I never get out of school. I hope I spend the rest of my life learning and reaching for new levels that I've never been. But it's only as I really accept who I am, who I understand who I am, that the true treasure that God placed in me at the very beginning of who I was, the gifts, the treasure, the all of the wonderful things, those things suddenly have then the opportunity to be released because you're settling into who you are and not who somebody else is. I may be going around the circle in this trying to over explain. Please forgive me if I'm doing that, but it is reality, because I'm telling you, once you know who you are, once you find that rhythm in there, things in life begin to change. Once you know who you are, people will begin to be drawn to you. Once you know who you are, things will begin to work. I know a lot of times people have just used references as, well, I'm just lucky, or, I guess, I just hit a good rhythm in life. No, the fact is, once you know who you are and you settle into that rhythm of who you are, life begins to work for you. Life is not designed to fail. Life is not designed to fall apart. Life is designed to work. It's designed to flourish. You do the right things, life works for you. You do the wrong things, life stops working for you. The Bible said the way of the transgressor is hard. Well, what's he transgressing? Well, what he's transgressing is wisdom and understanding. You transgress that, life gets very difficult for you. But once you begin to realize who you are and to walk within that rhythm, people will be drawn to you. Opportunities will be drawn to you. Resources will be drawn to you. Money will be drawn to. Everything will be drawn to you for you to fulfill exactly who you are supposed to be. All that I need to become all that I'm supposed to be will be drawn to me when I find that rhythm of who I am. And that's why it's so, so very important. Life begins to work because life is designed to work. It's not designed to fail. And it works to its highest potential when you know who you are. That's so very important. So identity is huge. It's huge to God. That's the first thing God does is he establishes your identity. The very first thing as a new believer, when you come to him, what you do is what he does to you is he begins to tell you who you are. You're a child of God. You are the righteousness of God in Christ. Now, of course, there's always going to be people that try to sabotage your identity. They'll tell you, well, no, you're not that. You could never be that. And the church has been notorious for that. You say something about I am the righteousness of God in Christ because that's the identity God gave me, and they'll say no, that's not right. You're a worm, you're a dog, you're an old sinner saved by grace. No, you weren't. You're not an old sinner saved by grace. Where'd you get that? You were a sinner, you were saved by grace, but now you are a new creature in Christ Jesus. The Bible said, old things have passed away. Behold, all things become new and all things are of God. But there are people who are so lost themselves that they not only have a bad identity for themselves, but they're very quick to put bad identities on you and on everybody else around them. Maybe it's just the fact that misery loves company, but that's the first thing that he did. So I want to say this to you in your life. Don't start out trying to get position. Don't start out trying to get gifts, trying to get this, trying to get that. Start out establishing your identity, who you are. And then the gifts, the position, all of these things will follow. So there are a lot of people that have gotten all of those things. They've gotten position, all that, but it's surrounded by a false identity, somebody that they're not. But when you begin to realize who you are, you're going to find that the tentativeness will disappear. The hesitation, the uncertainty, the insecurity, all of those things will begin to change once you are established in your identity. See, God gives you a name. That name carries an identity. It carries a prophecy. I love that part of it. I'm just telling you something. Your name is a prophecy of who you are. Your name is a prophecy of where you're going and what you're going to accomplish. Now, people in other generations, they certainly understood that because they would give names that actually carried destiny. Your name is this, and it means this. We don't do that anymore. We just try to find a pretty name off the internet, and it could be something, something stupid, or it could be something, the name might be cute, but it means Lucifer is loose in the nursery. And so every time you call them for dinner, you're calling them by that definition. We saw that with Abram, which became Abraham. See, God's great at giving names because he's giving names that hold purpose and destiny. God came to Abram and said, you're going to be the father of many nations, father of multitudes. And he changed his name from Abram to Abraham, which meant the father of a multitude. And even though he didn't have all of that, every time they called him to dinner, they said, hey, father of a multitude, come here. And we accept names for ourselves. We accept the names that people give us. And literally that becomes the watermark for our life. I see people mistakenly, and I know it's done foolishly. I know that if they really had a sense of understanding what they were doing, but people that deal with their kids, they call them stupid, and they call them you'll never amount to anything. I mean, they're giving these horrible definitions that literally gets tattooed on the heart of that child that carries and that becomes the watermark for their life. And all their life, they're thinking I was born on the wrong side of the tracks. I could never do that. I could never get an education. I'm so dumb. I'll never be able to marry. I'll never be able to have a strong business. All of those are labels that we accept as our identity. and we accept it as who we are. Now, it's not who we are, but we accept it as who we are. Therefore, it takes us in that direction, whether we want to go or not. I can think of another one, and I know I've given you a lot of these illustrations before, but boy, they sure bear repeating here. The time whenever Esau and Jacob was born from Isaac, it was the father's responsibility to name the child. Did you know that? It was the father's name. But whenever Jacob and Esau were born, of course, they were twins. Esau was born first. Jacob apparently somehow grabbed the heel of Esau as they were being born, and people saw it, and they called him Jacob, heel catcher, trickster. See, Jacob was labeled by the perception of other people. Isn't that amazing? How many times have we been labeled by and accepted certain identities because someone labeled us that way? That's what happened to Jacob. And so Jacob carried that name through much of his life. I mean, he went on and he did. He became a trickster. He became dishonest. Trickery and deceit became his identity. And he went to his uncle Laban's from running from Esau because he stole his birthright. He stole the blessing, stole all of that from him, and then split. Well, he knew his life was in disarray. And what happened? He went to God and he said, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. He wrestled with the angel there. I'm not going to let you go till you bless me. And then the angel said, all right, what is your name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, no longer is your name going to be Jacob, but Israel will be your name, a prince that has power with God and man. So to bless him, to change the direction of his life, he gave him a different name. It became another label for him, something to identify himself by. And that, I think that is so important. And what was interesting, if you want to see that just down the road a little bit, how it worked out in his life a little bit more, in Genesis about 35, there was a time when they were traveling from Bethel, and they were a little distance from where they were going to go. And Rachel, who he loved, who he worked 14 years for, she went into labor. Now, they already had Joseph, but she went into labor, and the Bible said she was dying. She labored in childbirth. She had hard labor, and it said when she was in the hard labor that her midwife said to her, said, don't be afraid, you're going to have this son also, okay? Told him that. And it said, as her soul was departing, she died in childbirth. As her soul was departing, she called his name Benoni, which means the son of my sorrow. Wow. What a horrible thing. Benoni, the son of my sorrow. A lot of people have been named out of someone else's pain. You became the consequence of somebody else's affliction, somebody else's pain, somebody else's hurt, and therefore they labeled you. Well, of course, Jacob had already been down that road, which his name now is Israel, and he stepped up and said, whoa, wait just a minute. His name is not going to be Benoni, but his name is going to be Benjamin, which means of the right hand. It was a position of honor. He gave him a name that was going to define the direction of his life by changing his name to Benjamin. So that's so very important. It's important that someone in authority over them, not people like named him Jacob, who maybe have just been observing and watching and choosing their own, not that it needed to be a father. It needed to be someone in authority. Now, of course, you can see that very same thing when Zacharias and Elizabeth had John the Baptist. See, they asked him, they said his name was going to be John, and everybody around him said, why would you call him John? Nobody in your family is named John. And so he wrote, his name is John. See, the father or those in authority, they're the ones that declare this is who he's going to be. And it's not going to be by somebody else's pain or somebody. I mean, you can look at that. You remember over in First Chronicles, it talked about a man by the name of Jabez and said he was more honorable than all of his brothers. But his mother named him Jabez because she said, and this is the way it says it, because I bore him in pain. Good gracious. Can you imagine that? I bore him in pain. You've been a source of my pain, and therefore I dump all of this over on you, and it's going to define you for the rest of your life. And it did. It boxed him in. It boxed him in. It housed him in. See, what you think of yourself becomes a prison for you in that it boxes you within that framework. And that's why he said, Jabez prayed. We all know the prayer of Jabez. He prayed and said, enlarge my borders. And what that means is help me get outside the boundaries of what I believe about myself. I need to know who I am. I need to know who you believe me to be. And it said the God of covenants heard him and granted his request. So in your life, you have to know who you are. Now, it's very possible your identity's been stolen. We go through a real problem with that nowadays. People through social media and various different things steal someone's identity and take advantage of them. Well, maybe you've had your identity stolen. Maybe you've had your identity, a false identity given to you. It's very important. And you've been living under this false premise of yourself. See, God has a plan for your life. And once you begin to define who you are, what does your name mean? What is the name by which you're called? What does that really mean? Who are you in character? I mean, and the very deepest inside of you, when you think about what drives your conscience, the thing on the inside of you that defines, I'll do this, I won't do that. This is who I am. This is the hill I'm making decisions on, and I'll die on that hill. I'm not backing off of it. See, those are the things that actually are descriptions of who you are. What kind of a man, what kind of a woman are you? So my question for you today is to say, who are you? Because your life is following that trail, whether you know it or not. Your life is following your opportunities, all of the things around you, they're coming to you, blessings coming to you, opportunities, money, because of that very statement right there. This is who I am. They also stay away from you because you don't know who you are. You think you're somebody else. And it pushes opportunity away. It pushes blessing. It pushes people. And you need those people. You need those opportunities. So that's something I want you to set your focus on today, is to define who you are and spend some time in meditation. Strip away all of the other stuff. You might have to strip away all of the clothing line, the mental line, the how am I acceptable line, my social media, all of this, strip all of that away. If I have nothing attached to me, who am I? And I promise you, once you begin to define that, things will begin to change. God's got a plan for you. I promise you, God has a plan for you, and it's really pretty special. It really is. But you got to start there. So don't be trying to get all kinds of opportunities and gifts and this and that. Don't start there. Start with who you are. That's the thing that's going to make the difference. All right. That's what I got for you today. Hope you enjoyed it. Why don't you take time, please like this, share this. I think it'll be a blessing to somebody. Stay in touch with me and let me know what I can do for you. You can obviously go to my website here, jerryedmon.com, and I'll have some things there that will be a blessing to you. But I love you guys. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time.